Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. What we'll be discussing today are the factors to help you choose your digital products, and we've got three main options which we'll be highlighting: the Replica ePaper digital magazine product, our latest solution which is Edition, which is a cover-to-cover mobile optimized digital experience, and also more live newsfeed based products, so much more of a feedy type app or web experience, and having a look in presenting a guide as to which solutions will be right for your readers. Today you have myself, I'm Ben Edwards, I'm the SVP of Business Development, and we also have my colleague Stuart here as well.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Stuart Smith. I'm one of the digital and mobile specialists here. I work on a day-to-day basis with clients on pretty much every continent.
Similar to Stuart, actually, I do a lot of key client work and get the opportunity to meet people to discuss and listen to how they're trying to monetize digital better. So what have we got in today's webinar? Well, there are some key sections that we wanted to highlight today, and we've got about 30 to 35 minutes, but also some housekeeping before we actually get into it. If you've got any questions during the webinar, on your control panel on the right hand side, you can ask those throughout, and at the end we'll be tackling those. And just before we finish, we've actually got a poll for you to give us some initial ideas about which of the solutions that we present are of interest to you and your readers. And the other key thing is, at the end we'll be recording this and you'll all be emailed it, and you can pass it along to your colleagues or put it on our website as well. So the key things in the webinar, we'll first be looking at the guide as to some of the external and internal factors, some of the things that you need to gather information wise before making any type of decision. Then we'll be looking at what is a Replica based product, who is using it in the market, both our customers and other people in the market. Then we'll be looking at the live newsfeed solutions, again, who's using that and why. And then a third of the products is Edition, as I mentioned, brand new product from PageSuite, currently in beta, looking at some of the use cases around that, who in the market has got a similar product, and what they're doing with it as well.
Yeah, perfect. So jumping into those key factors, the biggest change I find for consumers is the prevalence of choice these days. We've come a huge way from when the only formats that you can receive your news content in was by buying a print newspaper or by turning on the radio or the TV. You only need to go to any of the big publishing events like the One IFRAs and the IMRAs to look at the scheduled speeches throughout the events to see there's always one or two speeches on the death of print or the death of the e-paper product. But like I say, I think the reality is for modern consumers, we're just expecting a wider range of choice, particularly with our online products. So rather than just having that one medium, users are constantly coming across all these different formats and accessing their content. So it's segmenting the way you present your content to the audience. And I think the key for any publisher, and certainly in the day-to-day on the 150 to 160 publishers that I speak to globally on a day-to-day basis, the reality is actually what you need to do is work out what your core target audience is. Are you looking at consolidating your print readership into digital only subscribers? Are you looking at widening out and targeting different audiences? And what are the demographics that are most relevant for you in terms of who you're targeting?
Yeah, all key things in that initial review phase before making any types of product decisions. As Stuart touched on there, audience is key, and this is where we start, and that probably is got to be core to any of the decisions when looking at products. The first thing we've identified is the age of the target market. For e-paper, broadly across the world, we see that the people that enjoy and consume and pay for e-paper tend to be over 50. The good thing is they're also the types of people that are used to paying for content, like the newspaper look and feel. And with several newspaper user groups that we've done, we've actually found that readers have said if push came to shove, they'd actually sacrifice other types of subscriptions in their household before cancelling news or magazines, which is very much against the publishing is dead mantra trotted out by social media addicts. So the key thing there, even though the world and advertisers and marketeers are always trying to target the next young demographic, the people that are actually paying for news tend to be that age group. And from the fact that e-paper's been supposedly dead for 12 years, yet it's still here and alive, exactly, shows that they're more than happy to pay for that content. It's recurring, it's a solid base of revenue, and publishers need to count on that.
That's the product people know as well, isn't it? In terms of other areas that publishers can look to for expanding their audiences is, you know, the location of the readers was another big point that we picked up on. You know, and we can look at market leaders like Scandinavia in terms of the propensity to pay for digital being higher than anywhere else in the world, with maybe the exception of the US. And if you look at them geographically, there's a certain logic to that, in that, you know, vast areas of rural populations, and if you've got to travel an hour to get a printed newspaper, then of course you're much more likely to be inclined to taking a digital subscription. But we also look at emerging markets, and we work with a number of African, South and Latin American publishers. And for them, you know, in certain cases, you're still seeing an incline on the print side, which is unimaginable for a lot of us and a lot of people listening today, I imagine. But with the socioeconomic factors and emerging middle classes, you know, literacy rates are going up, and then the access to this sort of content via mobile phones and the technology improving are all becoming more accessible for the lower classes, meaning in certain markets, they're seeing boom areas across the board, not just in digital.
Yeah, closer to home, if you look at the difference in two areas, Southern Europe versus Central Europe, just to see how those geographic and cultural norms can really play a part, even though they're only a few hundred miles apart. You know, you got the fact like there's for years been free titles, print papers in Portugal, or the fact that Spanish sports fans, you know, Marca readers, for instance, they now have social channels to pick up the commentary on their clubs. In those regions, it's very different compared to Central European markets, who've almost had that inbred within them that content is paid for, so that there's almost a norm and establishment within their own mindset that paying for any type of news, digital or print, is going to be what you need to do. So we find for publishers trying to get subscribers in Lisbon, Madrid or Turin, it's actually harder than in Frankfurt, Brussels and Vienna. Now, you can just say that's about reader choice and expectations, but we would suggest if you're in some of those markets, you need a premium product in those tougher markets to convert the users, or you're going to have to accept a lower ARPU, average revenue per user, with a more feed-based product. And that's probably going to be largely ad-funded, where you need to go for a larger scale. There are other socioeconomic factors there too, and brand factors also play an influence really close to home. So me and Stu are based here in the UK. It's no surprise really that the Times, with its more middle class, higher income audience, the pay will work better for them than their stable mate at News UK, The Sun, who has more of a working class audience. Now that is an oversimplification because the content and the coverage is dramatically different. But at the time, the Sun did buy some big sports right content, Premier League goals. So it wasn't just the light stories that they're known for, but yet they still couldn't convert the massive stat paid for audience. Having an existing relationship with subscribers is really important. There's often a perceived challenge with apps, that Apple in particular give very little data out to publishers. Actually, what we see with app subscriptions is they do recur quite nicely. So even though publishers don't have that data as readily as maybe a direct sale, the problem is more of an economic problem, to be fair, because you're losing that percentage rather than the data side, because they actually do resubscribe. That said, if you can successfully bundle print and digital or create compelling digital packages, we have found and publishers have found that building on that existing subscriber relationship, they have a considerably lower churn than those that are brand new to you.
Spin-off brands can be really important there, and we'll touch on that a bit later on when we get to the edition product. But there's a lot of publishers out there that will take their in-app subscription, but then offer bundled or extra content as a way of getting people to contact them directly to register for that content. It might not be something they charge for. Is a great method of data capture or capturing the information on that user.
Also, on that Apple, Google point, the device and operating system used is important. So I would always implore publishers to look at just their general web stats to find what percentage of their audience for their website is using devices like the iPad versus an Android tablet, is using iOS rather than Android operating system. Because we find that, generally speaking, potential subscribers or subscribers using an iPad or on iOS have higher subscription rates, and that's lightly married into the fact that that person has enough money to buy an iPad or an iPhone. iTunes itself is seamless, so with doing that purchasing, it's a very easy, frictionless way to pay, and they're also more likely to be in one of the developed economies who have already a higher percentage likely to subscriber anyway.
It's a really good point, because again, if I was in the Caribbean, was recently visiting some clients out there, and they're maybe as high as 70 or 80% Android focused, and yet the revenue split is still fairly even, because again, for that exact reason, it's deemed that the ones with the higher expendable income in society are likely to be on Apple devices, even in those sort of markets. So that sort of range is right across across all of the markets we speak to. And the other big thing, of course, is technology based here. You know, in terms of the functionality available on things like iOS 12, you know, it's advancing every year and every release. I think the recent stats I was given in terms of number of users worldwide that are updating their iPhones in particular to the latest operating system is over 90% now are on version 12 or above. So, you know, that gives a real advantage in terms of what you can offer and the functionality that can be included with those products.
The external factors that you should consider, the first off is advertising. And although there are broadly declines both for newspapers and magazines, we do have quite a few clients still requesting specific opportunities within that are pertinent to which product choice you go down. The rise of programmatic means that we do tend to see on live newsfeed type products just an ad server inserted with MPUs, banners, and those types of positions. I think maybe on the B2B magazine side, there's some interesting things happening because they're increasingly looking at lead gen positions within the app. And I think other publishers could take heed of that, because if you think a B2B reader might still be on their mobile device, but it's very easy and quick these days to be able to capture intelligence on that reader, which is of huge value to a sponsor in that B2B market. Marketing strategy is also key. When we go around the world, there tends to not be a focus on all of these. Board level or VP level, maybe pick one or two. So depending on which is the real focus at the time will impact which products are going to be of most value to you. So are you more focused on acquisition? Are you more focused on spin-off markets? Or are you more focused on retention? For magazines, there's also the added revenue streams from things like events and data capture that need to come into play when making a decision on the product.
And it's there where the analytics is so important, isn't it? Because you've got to understand which of your content audience are most engaged with, how they're engaging with it and why, and that enables you to much more easily choose your new target audience or the relevant audience for your new digital products.
Competition is also key. A large part of our client base is within regional news, and it's slightly sad to see very sad to see some of the reports coming out, particularly in North America and the UK, about the demise and the lack of presence in small towns or even small cities now, with papers completely disappearing. So competition angle doesn't necessarily specifically mean within that local region. If you broaden it out and look globally, we consider the Middle East. There's not many publishers there wanting to be the first to move into paid for digital content because they fear that the free competition will actually eat their audience. That problem is something that's existed for a while, particularly here in the UK and in the US and Australia with The Guardian. Their premise of having open, which in this case means free, high quality journalism, is always going to be very hard to compete against when you're in those territories.
And that's pretty universal globally, isn't it? You know, you look at South America and Clarion releasing the first paywall last year, which early indications are it's gone quite smoothly for them, but you can replicate that with people like the Times of India being, again, the first to market with a pay-for ePaper product in India. And the challenges there in terms of the socio-economic background, again, are huge, because the average cover price of a newspaper over there is significantly reduced from what we look at to pay for.
Yeah, it's more pennies, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. And then in terms of the bandwidth costs of the many millions of print users that are used to accessing their ePaper for free, it's a real juggling act for publishers like those.
I guess the opposite of all of this is that's the reason why the FT and the Wall Street Journal are so successful. They don't have very many competing propositions. They're high value product. Their content is of high value to the reader. And on addition to that, the money tends not to actually come from the subscriber pockets, tends to come from the corporation which they represent. Final two pieces then to consider before making a decision on products. Internal workflows. This is becoming less and less common because publishers have more highly advanced CMSs. On the magazine side versus newspapers, there's more of a challenge because magazines tend to more work on an InDesign, and they tend not to have the digital assets and the CMS as readily available as newspapers do. But I think over time that has dropped. It's more than a case of who is the CMS that you want to integrate with, what are the third-party APIs that the publisher then wants, but do consider the internal workflows just to make sure that the product you want, you can actually deliver from the products you've got.
It's a big part of the process for us, from the first sort of contact or call to the meeting and to actually delivering the products. You know, we've got to understand what those workflows are, what the challenges are, but also the reason why we've grown at the rate we have over the past 15 years is because of our focus on automation. I mean, yes, all of our products come with the ability for you to curate elements of content or change certain features of functionality, but by automating 95 to 100% of the process for publishers, it gives them the freedom to use these solutions and trial new strategies without having to worry about workflows, wages, and all those other elements that can be a prohibitive factor in making a decision digitally.
The final one, fairly obvious, but budget and return on investment view, making sure that all of the stakeholders are aware of how much you've got to spend and what the potential revenue drivers are going to be to make sure that you recoup that. What's the factor buy that you need to get the return on? We've got solutions that are low 4 figures. We've got solutions that can be right up to 6 figures. So there's everything in between, depending on what budget you've got and what the
exactly that. It's, again, it links you back to that competitor analysis, doesn't it? You can read the Reuters digital publishing report or lots of other equivalents out there that will tell you what sort of percentages of your audience should be paying for digital in your market, and that can usually, with a bit of common sense, work out what your likely return is for launching any given product, and then you can make a judgment call of that. And again, we can walk you through those sort of processes if anybody wants to get in touch after the webinar today to talk these elements over.
Okay, so skip to you by accident, we're back on one. So what is Replica? There's 4 main routes that the ePaper can be used, and this is the first product we're going to go into. Web is the first, so the HTML5 solution. It will get you cross-platform, and it's great for, we find it's great for brands with strong email marketing to build that daily habit. So if you're a daily paper and you've got that built-out list, start delivering it at the set time every morning into people's inboxes. They click on the cover or their favourite section, and they read the paper the first thing, like they do in print, like they walk into the corner shop or they get delivered on their doorstep. The second option is apps, iOS, Android, Kindle, Fire. Readers tend to spend longer and consume more in-app versus the web, but the volume of traffic to the apps versus the web differs dramatically with each region. The third option is the SDK, and ever-increasing demand as publishers look to combine their branded apps. For a while, lots of publishers had more of a feedy-based product and then had an ePaper or a Replica-based product that was separate in the app stores. Publishers are increasingly asking us now to combine the two. I've not seen a definitive way which I could say 100% works, but I think with the metering and cross-sell opportunities by bundling them together, I can see why one app makes a lot of sense, particularly as people's number of apps that people use is exactly. 10 to 15 every month, and you want to be one of those rather than have 2 branded opportunities
exactly.
in store.
By the time you've taken your banking app and your social media platforms out of it, it only leaves a couple of spaces for everybody else to get in there, doesn't it?
The good thing with the SDK is you can actually lock that down. You can treat it separately to the feed-based content, even though it's in one product, so you can actually monetize it differently. The fourth is the kiosk. Scandinavian, Central American, UK clients with those using that, great consumer and B2B successes that we've seen, but you need that scale and you need a depth of content so that people are willing to pay a Netflix style, all you can eat for one fee product. Stu, over to you.
Yeah, so the Replica is always an interesting product because the perception of Replica for many is that it is exactly that. It's a classic Replica product. It's your print solution or your print product available online or offline in the case of the apps, anywhere. A big added bonus for anybody in terms of digital, of course, is always the analytics, and we'll keep coming back to that again and again today. But again, understanding your readers and their behaviour is crucial in terms of modernising your content flow and creation and the products that you offer. But beyond that, particularly here at PageSuite, the classic Replica edition doesn't just have to be the static PDF page turn within the page. Over 2 years ago now, we launched the article pop-out feature. And pretty much universally, every client I speak to tells me that the biggest growth area for them in terms of digital is the mobile audience. Their desktop and their tablet traffic sort of plateauing, it's not going up or down.
In terms of the web, most have got at least 50-50 split now between mobile and desktop, and that's increasing, isn't it?
Year on year, exactly, yes. You can expect that to continue, certainly over the next 2-3 years. And it sort of makes sense around mobile phone processing powers and all that kind of stuff. People are accessing content on the go. But with that article pop-out tool that we've developed, it gives that optimized reading experience on mobile. And one of the clients that first launched with that with us actually gave us some interesting stats recently on this. And they're saying that about 50% of their audience are still reading it in the classic ePaper view, so they're pinching to zoom and dragging around the page. The other 50% are reading it in the mobile optimized article pop-out view. But perhaps the really relevant fact within that comes off the back of that is, of the 50% that are reading the article pop-out view, they're on average spending 20% longer reading the content. So it sort of gives you that inevitable connection to engagement, and the greater your engagement is, of course, the lower your churn in subscriptions is, the higher your revenue streams in terms of advertising are as well. So it's a win-win situation for everybody, really. It's not just the article pop-out tool as well that can enable publishers to increase their engagement and content. And again, with the article pop-out functionality, you can have things like related articles, links in the article body, the video files, audio files, text-to-speech functionality if somebody doesn't want to read the news but wants to have it read to them.
Image galleries as well seem to be highly engaging.
Exactly. So there's all sorts of simple and effective tools you can do, and we always do it on these webinars. We always talk about the biggest and the greatest publishers worldwide and what they're doing, but we do see that whole spectrum here. And we had a small B2C magazine in the UK launched last year. It never had a digital presence before, and it actually took more revenue in its first weekend of its digital ePaper only product, simply because they put an exclusive video, 60-minute video interview with a celebrity in their field, and took more than 10 times the revenue they're expecting for the year just because of that simple fact. And they've continued to do that month on month in their editions and see huge growth in digital. So it can be really simple tools that you use on the Replica product to increase engagement and boost revenue figures. And that's the thing, really. Flexibility is always key. So whether it's something like monetizing your archive, we've had publishers put their archive back onto the early 1800s, or doing something like the Newsday model, Ben, where they were incorporate classic editions, and each week they reproduce one edition from a point in time in history and put a modern twist to it. That might be audio interviews with people looking back at the events then, video footage that's been digitally remastered and brought back into the edition, or whatever it may be. And it's hugely successful in terms of engagement, added value to their subscriber base, and of course on the advertising side.
I know a couple of publishers that do the classic editions thing, but also do things like evening editions, or when there's a special bit of coverage like politics or sport or weather, if there's a big moment in history that's happening, they'll do an evening or a special around that, and they get like 45-50% increases in traffic, huge engagement, and the subscribers in particular absolutely love it. It's a really great value add because they feel like they're getting it they're not paying any extra for it, but they realise that the newsroom put special effort into it. It could just be a 4-6 pager in the ePaper platform,
and most of the content's content that's already existing as well. That's the thing, isn't it? So it's just reconstituting that content that was always there. I mean, the other thing that a lot of clients talk to me about is the again, coming back to what your original strategy is, but using the classic Replica edition as a print retention tool. So if you've got a print delivery service, and the most common reasons you get for people phoning up and cancelling their subscriptions is either failure of delivery or price, you use the ePaper as a cheaper bundled subscription alternative to try and retain that subscriber in some format at least. And again, that's been really effective for a number of the clients I work with.
Who is using Replica and why? The first is a list of our existing clients. I was just saying there that most publishers price their ePaper higher than they do their feed apps. Several groups actually use their digital ePaper as the product that allows them to jump from maybe an introductory package to a mid or a higher tier package. One publisher not on this list actually gets 70% of their revenue from their digital package, where ePaper is the key differentiator. In terms of the actual product itself, we've got a client like the Daily Express that's literally just a flat replica. Then you have people like the Boston Globe who have what Stu mentioned there, the article pop out, that more enriched experience. And they benefit from that higher engagement by providing that option, particularly on mobile devices. Lots of US and European papers have the article view as well. There's that expectation within that market that readers have. People like the AJC and the Tribune, who are a multi-title publisher across the States, use our platform for their daily paper, the evenings and specials. And they're using it to maximize their existing content, service that customer demand, and in the case of the latter ones, drive subscriber value from the increased content. Outside of our clients is the next bullet point with Le Parisien, Big Paper in France. Their major product is their ePaper. Gannett have got tens, if not hundreds, of titles across the States. ePaper is their main solution for that for their markets. Daily Mail, the biggest paper in the UK, their product is primarily an ePaper product with the pop-up experience. Estadão, huge paper in Brazil. Vancouver Sun, big paper in Canada. They're non-page street clients, but they're just other examples of publishers utilizing ePaper really effectively, pricing it really interestingly as well. You'll see a lot more paid for content apps that are ePaper rather than feed driven.
There's still that belief amongst consumers, or certainly amongst publishers about consumers, that because a print product's paid for, then obviously an ePaper product is more likely to receive the revenue streams. And we are seeing that curve lessen slightly as the years go on, but there's still a belief, I think, amongst consumers that yes, because it looks and feels like a print paper, it should be a paid for product.
You've got the LA Times used, so the SDK of ours is used interestingly by two clients, which I've detailed here. LA Times has just gone to market with their own in-house built feed-based app, which is metered. And I think you get 5 or 6 free articles every month, and then the paywall drops. The ePaper actually sits behind that as well. So again, identifying this premium. Media House has its own more optimized edition product. And then they have the ePaper SDK as well, just to service those clients that love the Replica product. The final set of clients are those who utilize Replica, but alongside maybe one of our 2-in-1 type solutions. Newsday is actually custom built, but they have feeds and they have Replica, but still a huge percentage of their audience devours the ePaper and almost all of the pages every day. Albuquerque Journal is almost a classic 2-in-1 where you got the feed content for free, the ePaper's locked down. And Keski, you know quite well.
Yeah, so Kes Consumer Line and Group have got 3 of these 2-in-1 apps with us, and again they see a pretty healthy split in traffic between their ePaper and the live news elements. They managed to move the whole apps behind a paywall over a couple of year journey, really, in terms of educating their audience about paid for content. But again, you're seeing that increase in the usage of that side of the app, yet the ePaper is still front and center when you log in.
Okay, so what is live and what are the apps that are available, and what are the technologies available to deliver live news feeds? Well, in essence, it's for an audience who wants more on-demand, on-the-go content. Most of the time, we're streaming this via XML or JSON feeds direct from a CMS, and it's populating a mobile or a tablet template. And you can still have sections, you can still have like a home page, but it's not got that cover-to-cover experience that you get from a newspaper.
Live news apps, Ben's exactly right, are ideal for tackling the declining trend of people relying on social media for their news. You know, we've all talked about previously and seen in the news the Trump bump in the US over the last couple of years, and that 16% shift in consumers moving to reputable news sources rather than relying on social media because of the fake news. And, you know, arguably, will we see something similar here as a Boris bump or Boris bulge here in the UK over the coming years? Who knows? We can only hope, I suppose, if you're a UK publisher. But, you know, our templated custom app builds can serve up content as it happens. So really can compete with those social platforms in terms of as soon as you publish content to your website or via your editorial CMS, it'll appear in the live news app solutions. Whether you're incorporating breaking news apps or the appropriate users of push or segmented push by one of our partners like Airship, or deep link pushes taking you direct into an article.
Yeah, they've worked well.
Exactly, it can enable you really to bring up to the minute news to your consumers and actually be the first point of source that they come to in terms of consuming that news rather than social media. And as you mentioned on the previous slide, Ben, you know, it sort of falls into both categories, but we've got our, as well as our custom development arm where we do things like the Newsday app, we've got our off-the-shelf solution, which can be that 2-in-1 solution, still contain the Replica edition and offer all those enhanced features we were talking about earlier, but still have the ability to personalize the live news sections of the app. So the fact that users can choose which section, you know, if you're one of them readers that always turns your print paper over, so you read the sport first and read it from back to front, well, you can personalize the off-the-shelf solution to do exactly the same in terms of your reader behavior online.
Live newsfeed apps also give you that personalized experience. So it's not a huge amount of personalization you can do with the ePaper because it has a front, middle, and end. But I guess with feed apps, you can choose which sections you read or you prioritize. You can, with push notifications, you can even follow individual journalists with the partner integration we've got with Airship.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, in terms of partnerships and also engagement, you know, sort of personalization and engagement go together. The reason why we personalize our content is because we want to keep our readers locked into the solution for longer. It's just obvious. But, you know, we've worked really hard this year in terms of our third-party integrations, our range of options in terms of official partners. So, you know, I mentioned already the Airship one in terms of if you want segmented push, if users just want sport or just breaking news. We've also partnered with Puzzler Media. And again, interactive puzzles are a great way of increasing engagement. You know, when the average dwell time on a interactive puzzle page in an app solution's 10 to 12 minutes, you can imagine the sort of CPMs you're getting there from your advertising if you're placing it appropriately on the pages and things like that. So, you know, again, the list is endless, you know, and over the years we've had New York publishers integrate traffic cameras so you can check what's happening on your live route on your way home. We've had publishers in the Middle East put in gold prices and prayer times because that's what works well for them in terms of driving the traffic back to the day. And then more commonly on the regional side, we see a lot of what's on in the local area type integrations or national newspapers with up to date, up to the minute sports scores, whatever the national sport may be. And then the far more common ones are things like weather forecasting. You know, again, it's all simple tools in terms of driving engagement back to the app and back to the user, and how you get that users keep returning to the product time after time. And Live does that really well, particularly when compared to something like a Replica product.
Yeah, it's much more on demand. It's for that dip in, dip out experience. It's for people who don't necessarily have the time to, I remember back in the day, people called it a lean back, the ePaper experience.
Showing your age there, Ben.
So who is using the live newsfeed products and why? Well, there are a couple of publishers that we found that exclusively have live news only solutions. They don't have any type of edition product, no ePaper or optimized version. That's El País and also Globe and Mail. Then the second bundle of publishers have a couple of products in the market, but the live newsfeed, web and apps are definitely the ones that they're pushing the most. So that will be Daily Telegraph in the UK with their premium paywall meter. You've got Marca in Spain, Calgary Herald, Le Figaro in France, and Washington Post. I think actually have 3 different types of apps, but they also obviously have their ARC CMS. They've got different types of products for different types of markets by the looks of things. Then the third bundle of publishers are where the live newsfeed is main, but they have ePaper still in there, not built by us, but we wanted to highlight it because they really do push the live newsfeed front and center within the apps, and you have to dig to find the ePaper component, and that's the Australian and New York Times. And there's all sorts of reasons why publishers will be either combining the two or just having a live newsfeed product on its own and separate from the ePaper. The main reason that we get told is because of the dramatically different types of audience, and publishers don't want to either cannibalize or put off particularly the edition or ePaper readers and almost over confuse them with the live newsfeed app, because live newsfeed apps, as Stu mentioned, with all the APIs and the various sections that you can pull in and types of content, tend to be much deeper in terms of the availability of content on there and the feature rich element, whereas ePaper is ePaper, and they don't want to confuse them. So the third and final product that we were going to delve into is Edition, and this is our newest solution coming to market. It's a finishable mobile first cover to cover experience. We deliver this via progressive web apps and also native apps, so it's web and app publishing platform. It's completely automated, as is PageSuite's ePaper solution, but we're taking that underlying technology and bringing it to digital assets so that newspapers, magazines, all sorts of different publishers can create almost like a next generation type edition product across platform. It will resonate with consumers more as a paid for piece of content and allow you to package up all of those rich digital assets into this new format and deliver it to them on a however frequent basis you want.
Exactly, and we've talked a lot about flexibility today, so it's probably no great surprise that we've saved arguably the most flexible of the 3 products to last. You know, in Edition really is harnessing that belief that a Replica or Edition-based product still looks and feels like that classic newspaper or magazine, and therefore should be a paid-for product. You know, it supports any forms of content, so you can still put your PDFs into there. You can use XML and JSON feeds to feed direct from your website or from your Edition. It gives you that flexibility to be able to trial new brands, to spin out special one editions that may be a subscription upsell in the future, maybe an added value, and add that to your stable of products with a minimum of effort, allowing publishers to focus on the most important thing in their day-to-day work, which is of course the creation of the content itself. And again, you know, it gives the publisher the ability to segment and monetize their content in whichever way they choose, whether that is a food, sports, politics. You know, again, there was a lot of talk around when if Brexit happens in October, certain publishers putting out hourly updates around what Edition can do for them and what is happening in the news that day. The other big advantage we found with Edition is we've had a lot of publishers coming to us asking the question about why their print advertisers almost by default get a place and representation on their digital products without any kind of upsell. So Edition gives you the option to still incorporate your print advertisements, or actually you can remove them altogether, maybe offer a subscriber an ad light experience, or actually upsell those print advertisers to say, well, from now on, if you want to be in our digital products, it is an additional premium at X percentage, and here's the rates to be included in our mobile optimized all platform, all singing, all dancing Edition product. It also offers the publishers a chance to streamline workflows, whether it's discontinuing print on slower days or altogether like the Independent's done here in the UK. Other user cases are things like reintroducing PM edition, so you have the morning e-paper experience with a cover-to-cover reading experience in the evening of the breaking content that's come through the day, and that ad light experience that we'll talk about, that can all be achieved here with this product. The other thing that you can do is look at aggregate content. Again, if you look on the global stage, we're seeing more and more publishers from not necessarily direct competition in their own markets, but across markets, sharing their content and giving you access to one to the other. And you can do that in its most basic format here by passing over your content in its rawest format, but still spinning out a edition-based looking product within the market.
So whilst we're building the edition platform for our clients and publishers to harness, there are other publishers actually doing something similar with their own technologies. For instance, the Times of London publishes 3 times a day, morning, lunch and evening, across their website and apps. The New York Post does something similar, but they create a digital edition once a day, neither of whom actually use the printed paper or have that live news style feed user experience. They've gone for this more edition based concept. And if you look at the Times profit levels, you could say in a simulator that's working quite well. It's in terms of resonating with their users and the brand. They're obviously moving away from trying to compete on that mass market breaking news, and they're going for the longer form, much more curated type experience, which plays into the premium paywall that they've built and the audience that they've built around that.
And does it become a long-term replacement for print, or even for the classic e-paper? Well, time will tell, I suppose, on that side, but it's certainly working effectively for people like the Times.
Yeah, most publishers who are working within the beta program for this actually have it complementing the e-paper really nicely. Mm-hmm. You actually mentioned the morning is definitely the peak time for e-paper, but the journalists and newsrooms are creating content the rest of the day, so the evening edition comes into its own again, so people can have a nice branded edition experience when they're on the sofa or on their commute back. And the specials again that you mentioned, food, politics, sport, weather, all of these things really resonate with subscribers. And if you can build out maybe weekly specials around that or certain events, it makes a lot of sense.
And it's it's a fully flexible solution. So again, the question for you guys is how much content are you creating during the day, and does that serve for 3 editions a day, 2 editions a week, depending on the current frequency of what you put your content out in.
And if you've got enough content, do you want to keep delivering it throughout the day in that breaking news format, or do you want to wrap it all up, package it, and then present it as a one single curated view at a next point in time, hopefully with a bit more of a premium feel? So what is the best solution for you? I think we decided that everyone on the webinar should buy all 3.
Of them. Yeah, right? If you could all phone up and buy all of them after that would be appreciated. But in all seriousness, again, it comes back to what is your strategy? Do you understand the analytics? Do you understand your user behavior, your most popular content? Are you looking at consolidating your print subscribers into a digital format? Are you looking at expanding into new demographics and new areas of audiences that your content perhaps should be reaching but isn't currently? These are all crucial things. And again, we're happy to sit down with any one of you or anybody else in the publishing industry and talk through what your ambitions and goals are and lay out what the most relevant product for you is. But focusing on who that target audience is and seeing what the biggest areas of growth for you is essential in that process.
Yeah, because there's quite a few publishers out there. I mean, every day there's, so it was LA Times talking about their digital subscribers last week. You've got McClatchy doing things with sports, so it's a spin-off type brand. There's other publishers who are more focused on retention. There'll be smaller publishers who maybe can't actually create either the live news or edition-based product with a CMS output, but potentially we could do from extracted PDF content. So really all of these things you need to discuss and find out and do a little bit of exploration before saying, right, you should go for e-paper, or you should go for live news, or you should go for edition.
Exactly. And ultimately, I think I go back to the point I made at the beginning, but it does come down to the fact that consumers are expecting choice in the products that are out there. So maybe it is a combination of 2 of these products, maybe it's just the one, but it's working out what the most relevant product for them is. If they're accessing content on the go, then yes, you're probably going to go to live. If it's that over 55 with the biggest expendable incomes that you want to target, then probably the Replica product. If you're producing loads of content and you feel you're not packaging it up in the best way, or you want to trial new audiences and you're constantly looking to push boundaries, then yes, edition's probably the way to go. There's also the data capture element, with edition being a progressive web app. If you're looking at actually finding out who your subscribers are rather than in an app where you just get a subscriber ID. Again, maybe Edition and PWA is the option for you.
So that draws a close to today's webinar. We ask you, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ping them through as we are conducting our poll, which we would really appreciate you spending, the 2 seconds to click which of these solutions you think, just on first impressions, could be right for your readers. Obviously, as we've sort of mentioned, without exploration, without digging in, you might not 100% know, but first impressions are always interesting for us.
It'd be interesting to hear what you want, and of course, if you want to set up some time to talk it over in more detail.
Yes, loads of people for Replica.
Our email address already.
Big fan of the responses so far. Good to see. So the majority of people seem to be saying that Replica is of most interest. There's a percentage who are saying Edition, and not a huge
lagging behind her in live, which is no great surprise.
I think that's showing that all of that early enthusiasm for personalized content, live breaking news. We must be the first. We must build up this audience. Exactly. Actually, when you can only monetize it with £1 CPM advertising, then it doesn't really deliver the ROI. So we're going to quickly go through the questions as well as we just wait for the final responses.
So which solution? Oh, sorry, that's the.
Okay, so first one to you, Stu. First one, while I close the poll. First one for you, Stu, is.
No pressure.
No pressure. Which publishers do you think are doing things well?
Well, we've talked about a few here, haven't we? And the Times Edition app comes up regularly when I'm meeting with clients. It's often one that people reference and compare to. Looking at some of our clients, there's so many good examples of both Replica and live products out there, and I'm sure there will be a whole stable of Edition products by the end of the year. But you can look at the Dallas Morning News' ePaper, where they include their Our Dear weekly title in there as an added value for their subscribers as well, and that's really effective. From what I can see, their audience is not a client I speak to directly.
But it's nice products, and actually on that like city-based paper in the States, client of mine AJC, always doing great things with the evening editions, specials, just utilising the platform in the best way possible.
Exactly. We spent 15 years putting sort of over 300 features into that Replica product, and they're there to be used. And there are those clients out there like AJC that do that really, really well.
Media House as well. Media House must be doing something right, because they keep buying regional publishers that are failing here in the UK. And actually, when we go to see them in Belgium, they're highly efficient. They understand their audience. They're able to monetize it. So I think broader, they're doing some good things. Everything discussed seems to be quite app focused. Do our solutions work on the web? I think that's probably the language that we keep using.
It's a really good question. So I mean, first and foremost, obviously, our ePaper and Replica product works across all platforms, as does the Edition product with the PWA. And it's also worth dropping in that over the last year, we started doing website developments for a few publishers as well. So we've had launches on web platforms for the Fiji Times, who've actually gone with a web and live solution combo, and also more recently the Gibraltar Chronicle. Both of those publishers have got metered approaches to the website content and starting to achieve some results for them. But on top of that, you've got people like Gibraltar Chronicle, where they're currently Replica and website combination, and about to move to Replica and Edition combination. We'll see how that does in the market. We're all confident that that's going to do really well for them. So yes, perhaps the language we use today is more app focused, but these do apply across all platforms.
Web app is also, when we say app, sometimes we mean web app with the PWA. I think that's it in terms of questions. So unless I've done something, I think that is it. So Stuart, thanks for
thanks for having me again, Ben. It's always a pleasure.
Thanks to all of you for joining us on the webinar. As we mentioned, this will be sent out later on, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye.